Hey, welcome back. So a while ago, I did a video of a low light test between the 4.6K and the 4K. You can check it out over here. A lot of people responded and said, hey, the 4.6K has got this massive magenta cast. And yes, it does have a magenta cast. And no, I didn't color balance that footage at all. Probably should have. It's a pretty easy fix in post. It's not like it destroys your footage. But Blackmagic just released their new update for the camera, and you can now change the magenta. You can change the tint to green or magenta. And today I wanted to talk about it. I did some tests, so let's take a look. I just kind of threw up some lights, made a little scene, and shot it. Everything I shot was in ProRes to make sure that, obviously, if you're shooting RAW, you can just move the slider and you can change the tint all you want in post. So you have huge flexibility. With ProRes, it's a little more baked in, so you kind of have to do a lot more tweaking. I did a bunch of different tests. I went by increments of 5 until I got up to 20. And then I just jumped to 30 and 50 because I figured 30 and 50, really, what are you going to be able to do with it? So then what I did was I just did a really quick color pass, brought up saturation, and did like a luminance curve kind of thing. That was it. So here's that, and you can see again how extreme it is. And then once you get into, 10, 5 doesn't look bad. 0, which is what the camera is actually set at. So then you go down from there, -10. You can start seeing that green in the wall and and the highlights of my face. And then you go to the extreme of -30 and -50, which, right? So you can see a huge difference. Obviously, in the camera now, if you don't want to have to do a lot of fixing in post, you can find what tint works well for you, and then go from there. For me, let's go through these real quick. The first thing I did was I just put a simple vignette around the face, and then if you hit Shift H, it will do just that highlighted vignette area, which then just gives me the skin tones, at least a little bit closer to just the skin tones. And then I pulled up my scopes to take a look, and then I went through each one and saw which one I felt had the closest balanced skin tones. And what I was looking at was mostly the vector scope over here. And what you can do is you can actually do a ×2 to make it a little bigger. And then once I did that, I took off the highlight, and then I did one more time. I checked out the scope to make sure it was like, yeah, that looks pretty good. That looks pretty great. Anyway, so then I did a quick color correction on it. Now we have a little more balanced image. The greens and the reds and the blues, they all kind of match. They're all pretty close. You can look over here at my vector scope. It's pretty close to the middle. And then I put on here show skin tone indicator. So here's kind of where skin tone should be, rough estimate. So it's looking pretty good. So if we look at the image, you can see it takes out a lot of the green. It does seem like it has a little bit of a blue tint to it still. I might have gone a little too much, but I was amazingly surprised at how much you could save an image that looks like this to that. So if you're at the extreme -50 and you're in massive green, yeah, it's actually somewhat savable. Now, I wouldn't suggest shooting at -50. Again, do whatever you want. You can, if you want to shoot the Matrix and you want it to look like that, great. Yeah, you did it. Whatever floats your boat. All right, so let's go down to the magenta. Okay. So again, I did the exact same thing with the magenta. Oh, let's look at the scopes first. So I did the exact same thing with the magenta, and here you can see some really, really interesting issues. And then if you look at the vector, you can see we are obviously mostly in the magenta. See it? If you look at the image, it's really clear that it's very magenta. Okay, so then if you come in here and I put on my color correction, again, I was massively surprised. And then even comparing the two, I compared the massive magenta versus the massive green Let me play this still. And you can see they don't match perfectly. And the thing that I was surprised about, at least to my eye, I actually liked the massive magenta better than the massive green. I felt like the camera, I was in post, it was easier to work with. It was easier to take that magenta out than it was to take the green out. But just know that the 4.6K, yes, it does skew more magenta. Without this update, it was I always had to do a little bit of color correction on the skin tones because of the magenta. But now with this, I don't. Like, let me show you. Let me go to a little more real world example. We're not going to go to negative 50 and 50 typically. So I did a bunch of color corrections on these. I kind of picked which one, according to the scopes, I felt was closest, like which one was the most balanced already without me having to do a massive color balance. So I kind of, what's this image looking like on the scopes? Because your eye always lies to you. Your eye lies, okay? Scopes don't. All right. Cool beans. So it's between negative 20 and negative 15 were the ones that I personally really liked. Let's take a look at it. So then I take this off and you can see there's the color correction before, after, right? Before, after. So look at the vector scope especially. You can see kind of moves a lot more towards that skin tone line. So now let's take a look at the actual image. So we bring that full screen and we toggle it on and off, and you can see it takes out a little bit of that blue. You can see a little bit of blue cast in the shadows, and it also balances out some of that green, or excuse me, some of that magenta in my skin and a little bit of the green. So balance out the image is really nice. I personally really loved this image. It was super nice to have the option to choose what tint I liked, and then working with all these different clips in post, finding the one that I felt color balanced the easiest, that worked best. And honestly, I liked negative 15, at least shooting under tungsten. Daylight may be different, and I'll do another test on that later. I feel like this camera, if you go to about between a negative 10 and a negative 20, is actually a pretty good spot for getting rid of the magenta without bringing it into post, without having to do a lot of post processing on it. For those of you that were super worried about the magenta cast on this camera, it's gone. It's a non-issue. I mean, you can set it in the camera. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Be sure to subscribe. Check out my other videos. I'm going to have another one about the 4K. Same type of thing, changing the tint and seeing what you can do with it. Thanks, guys.